In this video, we're going to be looking at auditing our database. So the first thing we have to do, I'm going to go in and I'm going to start up SQL Server Management Studio. And when we go in, I'm going to log in as myself. Now, keep in mind, this is in the Windows, okay? I'm going to go in, say I want to log every time somebody accesses the customer table in Outlander Spices. Okay, so I'm going to connect as myself since I have total administrative capabilities for the databases. And what I'm going to do is where we have the databases, okay, like I said, I want to audit Outlander Spices. So I'm going to click on Security, and you'll see that we have our audits here. Now, if I go to try to expand audits, it doesn't do anything because I don't have any audits defined at this point. One thing you have to remember is when you're doing an audit, there's two things that have to be defined. The first is the audit itself under Security. Okay, and what you do there is basically define where do you want the audit to be stored. All right, so before I even define an audit, what I'm going to do is bring up File Manager, go into my C drive, and I'm going to create a folder so that I can place all my audits in there. So I'm just going to right-click, New Folder, and we'll call it Audits. This way, I know that they're there. Anybody can get to them if they have to, and we can look at what we need to, what's been audited as far as that goes. All right. So I have my folder defined over here. So the next step, now that I've defined my folder, I'm going to go into my audits under Security, okay, and I'm going to right-click and do a new audit. So I'm going to say, since I'm going in and auditing Outlander Spices, I'll put OS for Outlander Spices Audits. Then we have a delay in milliseconds when it writes out to the file. That's fine. On audit log failure, we can either continue, fail the operation, or shut down the server. Well, if something happens as I'm auditing, I don't want to shut down the server. That's kind of drastic in that respect. If I do a fail operation, then what that will do is it'll just stop that operation. The person just has to go ahead and redo that again. I'm just going to go on and just click continue at this point. It doesn't matter. As far as the audit destination goes, I could go out to a file, security log, or application log. All right, since we set the folder, we're just going to do it as a file. It just makes it easier. Just put the files out there. It makes it simpler for everybody to get to rather than having as specific log files in certain areas, because security logs, they get stored in a different area. Application logs get stored. So with the file that we've set up, we could go ahead and change where we want that file to be placed. So for the path, I'm going to click on the three dots here, and I'm going to navigate to the C drive and choose the audits folder that I had created. Click OK. Now, as far as maximum files for the audits that we put here, I could go with unlimited. I could specify the number of files that I want out there. I could specify a file size. It doesn't make any difference. The problem is that in theory, and it's not just theory, it could also happen, and I've seen that happen, it can end up that you have so many log files that they basically eat up all of the disk space, okay? As you could see, on the bottom here, I have where I can reserve an amount of disk space. If I check on that, however, you can see because I have these set up as unlimited, I can't reserve a disk space. So in order to reserve disk space, what you have to do is take out the unlimited. You do have to set a file, the number of files or a file size, okay? And then you can go in and you could reserve, like say you want to reserve 10 gigs or something like that on your hard drive. That way it doesn't eat up all of the space. In this case, because we're only going to be doing a couple things, I'm just going to go with the unlimited. I'm not going to bother reserving any disk space at this point, or because like I said, it's not like we're going to sit here and just constantly monitor this thing day in and day out. Okay, that's a different situation when it's at work, but in this case here, we're just playing around with it. We're only going to do maybe one or two different things in there, and then we can see what we've done. And that's pretty much it. So I'm not going to bother as far as the limits go. Everything here could just go ahead with unlimited. It doesn't make any difference. All right. Once we go ahead and have this specified, I've now specified the new audit. And remember, at this point, basically what we've done is defined where this is going to sit. Where are all the audit files going to be placed? Okay, so we have that defined. Hit OK. You'll see now what it did was in the Object Explorer under Audits, I now have my Outlander Spices audits defined here. I don't know if you could see this or not. Notice that it kind of looks like a magnifying glass, but there's a red X there. What it means is the audit is there, but it's not enabled at this point. So the next step is I have to go in, right-click, and enable the audit. Once I have that done, hit closed, you'll see now that the red X went away. So the audit is there, it's enabled, and it's ready to be used. Okay? Now, directly under that, you can see that I have server audit specifications. I can audit at the server level, or in this case, the database level. We're not going to bother with the server level because auditing at the server level is just like auditing in your network. When you're working on your networks or whatever, you're monitoring different servers, you audit them. Okay, so you're basically doing the same thing there. But what we're concentrating here is on the databases themselves. Okay, so now, because I want to go into Outlander Spices, I'm going to expand Outlander Spices, go down to Security, and then what we're going to do is where we have the database audit specifications. Okay, notice if I go to expand that, there's nothing there. So there's no new audit specifications that we have there. What we have to do is create one. So in this case, I want to create a specification that is going to go ahead and monitor when the customer table in Outlander Spices has been accessed with a select. Okay? There's all different ways that and I'll show you very shortly. What we're going to do is go into the database specifications, right click on that, do a new database audit. Okay? Excuse me. So for a name, let's say select on customer. So this way we could see that we're monitoring when anybody ever accesses the customer table as a select statement. Okay? The audit, which audit do I want to use? Well, in this case, I only have one that I've created. So we're going with the Outlander Spices audits. We're telling it where we want to save these counts that we're doing. Okay? Now, what audit action type am I looking for? If I expand this, click the down arrow, you can see there's all kinds of different things that we could go ahead and monitor. One of them, as we go down, I have a select. So this way I can monitor anytime anybody does a select on a particular table. We can monitor updates if somebody tries to update the table. Inserts if they want to add a record, if they want to delete a record, or if they try to execute any processes or whatever. So you can see that there's all different ways that we can monitor for all different things. In this case, because we want to monitor when somebody reads the customer table, we're going to go with a select. Okay, let me expand this so that we have the full option here. So the object class, what am I looking for? We are looking for an object. The object name, I'm going to go all the way over here, click on the 3 dots and do a browse. What we're looking for is the customer table. So you could see customer is right here, it's the very first one. So I'm going to check on that, click OK, and then click OK again. And what that does is this will fill in. For the object schema, it's the DBO. DBO stands for the database owner. So basically, as the administrator, since I own the system, I'm basically the database owner. Anybody that has authority to go in is, at that point, the database owner that they're working with. So we have the customer table that we're looking for. You'll see up here at the top, it's telling me enter the principal name in row 1. I have to say, now, who do I want to monitor as far as selecting? Okay, so for the principal name, I go all the way to the right here, click on the 3 dots, and do a browse. And you could see, I could go with backup operator, data reader, writer, administrator, whoever. Because I want to monitor everybody that is going to be accessing the select customer, I'm going to go with public. And public is a built-in group in SQL Server, and that's everybody. Whoever has an account to be able to go into the database. So at this point, I want to monitor everybody that's there. If I wanted to, we could go with individuals, specific, as you saw here, okay? But we're going to go with the public. That's the easier way to do it. Just go with public all the time. That gets everybody. Because at this point, if you're looking specifically for certain things, say you notice something is going on in the database, you want to monitor activity in there. You don't know specifically who is going in, but we could go in and monitor everybody, and then in the log, it will tell us at that time who accessed what. So then you can see different things, and we'll see that shortly when we go into the log here. All right, so once we have public as the principal name, I'm going to hit OK. You'll see that it filled that in. All right, I can bring this back down to size so that we have everything there. So we have a select for the action type. The object class is object. The schema is the database owner. Object name is customer. So we're looking at the customer table, and we're going to monitor everybody. Hit OK. I'd also notice that we gave the database audit a name. We told it which audit we wanted to use after we had defined it. So now we're all set. Hit OK. And that's it. Just like we had to on the audit, we had to enable that. We also have to enable this. You'll see that we have a red X if you look closely there. Right click on select on customer and do an enable database audit specification. We'll get a message, hit close, and now that's enabled. At this point now, it is auditing. And it's not sitting there constantly measuring everything. The only time it's actually going to write something out there is when something is done. In this case, a select on a customer. So if I were to go to the customer table in Outlander Spices, I'm going to right click and do a select top 1000 rows. At this point, it should have written something in the application log, or it should have created the file as a log file and go ahead and write something in there. All right, so in order to see what's there, I could close this out, go to my audits here. I'm going to right click on the audits and view the audit log. And you'll see, here I have it. All right, if I expand that, you'll see that here I have it when I had created the log. So you do have an entry there. And here you see select. We actually see that it monitored it Okay, we see that there was a select on a table at this date and time. Okay, the permission was true, so that meant that whoever was able to do that did have the proper permissions to be able to go in there. What else do we have here? Who did it? Here we go. Remember that we had public that we were monitoring, but in this case here, you could see I personally went in and accessed it. Okay, so we could see specifically who is accessing this. All right, and as you can see, as we go through the log here, some things are filled in, some things are not. It all depends on what it's monitoring, but for the most part, that's what we're, oh, it even tells you how did I access it. I accessed it through SQL Server Management Studio. If I would have accessed it through, say, a command prompt or whatever, it will tell you whether it's command line, SQL Server Management Studio, Visual Studio Code, whatever it could be. Okay, it'll tell you how you are accessing that particular table. Excuse me. All right, and then where did it put it? Okay, here's the source. Outlander Spices Audits. It went in and put it over there. All right, so you can see here how we have our audit set up. And that's pretty much it. That's all you really need as far as setting up an audit. You just have to remember there's two parts to the audit itself. Where you're going to save it, and then what are you going to save? What are you trying to audit itself? Okay? Once you have those two things defined, anytime you go in there, anybody that logs into the SQL Server, when they go to access whatever you're monitoring, then it'll go ahead and put an entry in that log file. All right? So now hopefully this will be able to get you through your assignment. If you have any questions, let me know. Email me and we'll take it from there. All right? But hopefully you should be okay. Again, any questions or anything, just let me know. And then until next time, I'll see you then. Take care.